The golden rays of the evening sun danced across the large compound of Chief Obinna, one of the richest men in southeastern Nigeria. His mansion, painted cream and gold, stood like a palace in the heart of the city. Expensive cars lined the driveway, and uniformed maids moved quietly about the house, but inside that mansion, peace was far away. Obinna sat alone in his study, staring at an old photo of his wedding day. He looked young, full of hope, standing beside Adaze, his beautiful bride. She had once made his heart beat faster with just a smile. But now, that smile only came when he brought home gifts or money. He sighed. Outside, the sound of laughter echoed from the swimming pool. Adaze was hosting a ladies' tea party. Women in glittering clothes were snapping selfies, sipping champagne, and talking about the latest cars and jewelry. His teenage son, Toby, walked past the door quietly, holding a school bag. Obinna called him in. "Sit, my son." Toby sat, eyes calm and serious. He was just 16, but wise beyond his years. Unlike his mother and older siblings, he didn't care about luxury. "Do you ever wonder," Obinna asked, "if the people around us love us for who we are, or just for what we have?" Toby thought for a moment. "Sometimes. I notice how everyone changes when money is not involved." Obinna nodded slowly. That was the very thing haunting him. His wife no longer showed affection unless there was a shopping trip. His older daughter, Chidinma, only posted photos of herself wearing designer clothes on social media, calling herself a billionaire's princess. Even his cousins who once lived humbly now acted like kings under his roof. That night at dinner, Obinna announced a quiet family meeting. "I need to talk to all of you," he said as the servants cleared the dishes. Adaze sighed loudly. "Must we always have these talks? I have somewhere to be." "This will be quick," Obinna said gently. "I've made a decision. Starting next week, I'm stepping away from all business." Adaze looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I'm taking a break, selling off some assets, freezing the accounts. I need peace. I want to live quietly for some time, maybe in the village." The silence was loud. "Village?" Chidinma laughed. "Daddy, are you joking? There's no Wi-Fi in the village." Adaze looked stunned. "You want to drag me from this mansion? To go and live where goats sleep on the road?" Obinna's voice remained calm. "Yes, I want to see what truly matters." Adaze stood up and stormed off. "This is madness. Absolute madness." Only Toby remained seated, his face thoughtful. That night, Obinna called Chiki, his most trusted friend and lawyer. "Transfer all company control to the private account," Obinna instructed. "Let the world believe I'm broke. Shut down all my business profiles. I want to live like a poor man for the next few months." "Are you sure?" Chiki asked. "I've never been more certain," Obinna replied. "I need to know who will stay when the lights go off." As the call ended, Obinna stepped out onto the balcony. The moonlight bathed the compound in silver. In the distance, the sounds of music and laughter still rose from the party Adaze had returned to. But inside Obinna's heart, something was breaking, and something else was beginning. A test, a journey, to find out who truly cared. The following morning, a dull heaviness hung in the air of Chief Obinna's mansion. The luxury still sparkled, but something had changed. Adaze refused to come downstairs for breakfast. "Tell your father I'm not hungry," she told the maid, "and I don't want to hear any more foolish talk about villages." Meanwhile, Obinna calmly packed a few clothes into an old travel bag. He had already told the drivers and guards to take a break, and the housekeepers had been paid and released for the month. The mansion that usually buzzed with noise felt like a ghost town. By noon, he called a family meeting again. Adaze arrived late, her eyes red with anger. Chidinma rolled her eyes and dragged her feet. Toby sat beside his father quietly. "I've finalized everything," Obinna began. "We are leaving this house today. The businesses are closed, The accounts are frozen. We only have one option left, my late father's house in Umachukwu village. A daisy sprang to her feet. You must be joking, Obinna. I'm not, he said gently. I have nothing left in the city. It's either the village or the streets, Chidinma gasped. This is wickedness. Do you want us to die from mosquito bites? Obinna remained calm. We will manage. Together. A daisy clapped her hands in disbelief. I, a daisy, who used to fly to Dubai just to shop, now, going to live in a mud house? To Fiakwa. Despite their protests, Obinna locked the house and handed the keys to Chiki. He guided his family into a small, dusty car that once belonged to his father, an old Peugeot that coughed before it moved. There was no driver. Obinna sat behind, the wheel himself, wearing a plain shirt. The journey to the village was long and bumpy. A daisy complained the entire way. Chidinma wore a face mask and sprayed perfume in the car every few minutes. Toby stared out the window in silence, taking everything in. 3 hours later, they arrived. The village house was small, 2 rooms, a clay kitchen at the back, a single outdoor toilet, and no generator. A chicken ran past as they parked, Adeza. Refused to get out. This is a joke! Where are the gates? Where is the fence? This place is not even safe. Obinna ignored her and opened the car boot. Help me carry the bags. Tobe stepped out and helped his father carry the small luggage. Chidinma stood still, too shocked to move. There's no Wi-Fi, she whispered. No light. No mirror. No air conditioning. Obinna pushed open the creaky door. Inside were 2 plastic chairs, a broken wooden shelf, and a mattress rolled. Up in one corner. Cobwebs filled the corners. The air smelled of dust and old palm oil. Adez finally entered and sat on a stool, fanning herself with her scarf. God punish poverty, she muttered. Obinna bent down and started sweeping with a broom he found in the corner. Let's clean the place. No, Adezi snapped. I didn't come here to do housework. Chidinma hissed and walked out, sitting under a mango tree with her arms folded. That night, they ate boiled yam and palm oil. No fancy meals, no wine. They all slept in the same room, on the floor, under one mosquito net. As the lantern flickered and the wind whistled through the cracks, Obinna turned to look at his family. Adez had turned her back on him. Chidinma was hugging her bag like a teddy bear. Only Tobe lay quietly beside him. Dad, Toby whispered. Don't worry, we'll be okay. Obinna felt tears sting his eyes. At least one person still stood with him. The village mornings came early and loud. Birds chirped, roosters crowed, smoke curled up from nearby huts as women lit fires to cook. But in Obinna's tiny compound, the day started with complaints. Adez stormed out of the hut wearing a silk wrapper and her husband's old slippers. There's no water, she shouted. I have to walk half a mile to fetch it myself? Obinna was already outside, boiling water over firewood. We all fetch water here. You'll get used to it. I will not, she snapped. This is not my life. Chidinma sat on a stool, grumbling as she tried to connect her phone to a signal that didn't exist. This place is worse than prison, she muttered. I can't even go live on Instagram. Meanwhile, Tobe carried a bucket of water on his head, sweat already rolling down his forehead. Good job, son, Obinna said, smiling. We'll use that to clean the compound. Toby nodded and dropped the bucket beside him. As the days passed, Adez grew colder. She rarely spoke to Obinna unless it was to complain. Every evening she disappeared for hours, claiming to be meeting the women group. But Toby noticed something odd. His mother never carried a Bible or basket. She came back smelling of perfume and roasted meat, things that didn't exist in their home. One afternoon, Toby saw her walking down a narrow path behind the village, laughing with Chief Odili, a large man in flowing native wear, known for throwing money around and flirting with women. Tobe's heart sank. He said nothing, But the truth began to form like smoke in his chest. Meanwhile, Obina continued to play the role of a broken man. He worked the land with Tobe, planting cassava and maize. They cooked together, fetched water, and patched holes in the hut roof. Toby had never felt closer to his father. One day, Obina returned home early and found Adeyezi sitting outside, smiling to herself. "You look happy," he said, surprised. Adeyezi blinked. "Just enjoying the breeze." He sat beside her. "I haven't seen you this cheerful in weeks." She adjusted her wrapper and looked away. "Maybe I'm getting used to this simple life." Obina studied her carefully. Her fingers sparkled faintly with gold rings. Her lips were freshly glossed, but he said nothing. That evening, Tobe saw Chief Odili's car parked at the back of the Golden Palm Guest Lodge, a place where no decent woman should be alone with a man. He watched from behind a bush as his mother stepped out of the back door, fixing her wrapper and smiling. His stomach turned. The next day, Adeyezi cooked a special meal, jollof rice with chicken and fried plantain. She served only herself and Chidinma. Obina and Toby quietly ate boiled yam again. When Adeyezi wasn't looking, Toby took her phone and checked the messages. There they were. Texts from my king Chief Odili. "Your beauty makes this village glow. Don't worry. I'll build you a house far better than your husband's." Tobe's hands shook. He saved the messages and returned the phone. That night, as Obina lay on the mat, Toby whispered, "Dad, if someone is pretending to love us, would you want to know?" Obina turned slowly. "Yes, son. Truth is painful, but lies destroy." Toby said nothing more, but his mind was made up. The truth would come out, soon. The next morning, the sky was gray with early clouds, and the smell of rain hovered in the air. Tobe walked down to the bush path again, carrying a small radio in his backpack. Not to listen to music, but to hide the tiny voice recorder his Uncle Chike had once given him. He was ready now. He knew it wasn't right to spy on his own mother, but something inside him said it had to be done. Not for revenge, but for truth. As expected, Adeyezi returned to the guest lodge that afternoon. Chief Odili was waiting, as always, in his private room. Toby sneaked behind the building, placed the radio on the windowsill, and turned on the recorder. Inside, laughter echoed. "Oh, Chief, you're so sweet," Adeyezi purred. "You deserve sweetness, my queen," Odili replied, his voice full of pride. "I've never met a woman like you, so fine, so bold." Adeyezi giggled. "You treat me better than my husband ever did." "You're not meant for suffering," Odili said. "Soon I'll build you a proper house. I've spoken to my builders." "Already? What about your wives?" Adeyezi asked. "They are nothing," Odili said with a snort. "Old baggage. I only need you. Once I become king of this village, you'll be my queen. You'll see." Toby clenched his fists. He wanted to scream, but he didn't. Instead, he walked away quietly, his mission complete. That evening, the rain began to fall in heavy sheets. Obina and Toby sat on a wooden bench inside the hut, patching a torn mosquito net with sewing thread. "Dad," Toby said finally, pulling out the recorder. "There's something you need to hear." He played the audio. Obina listened in silence, his face unreadable. When it ended, there was a long pause. "I didn't want to believe it," Obina said at last, his voice low. "But I had to know." "What will you do?" Tobe asked. "Nothing. Not yet. But," Obina raised a hand gently, "if you attack a snake before it finishes crawling, you'll only make it hide better. Let her think she's winning." Toby nodded slowly, still burning inside. The next few days passed with more tension. Adeyezi started talking about future plans. "I've made friends in this village," she said loudly one morning. There are opportunities here too, you. No, we can build again. We don't have to return to that miserable city. Obina nodded calmly. You're right. We'll see what the future holds. That afternoon, Adiz disappeared again. This time, she returned with a small parcel wrapped in a plastic bag. Rice, fresh fish, and canned milk. Where did you get all this? Obina asked. A friend in the market, she replied quickly. She said I looked tired and gave me some food. Obina didn't argue. He just smiled politely and turned back to his hoe. But Toby saw it. The pride in her walk, the expensive scent on her wrapper, the gold bracelet peeking from beneath her sleeve. That evening, while Chidinma snapped photos near a mud wall pretending. It was a rural photo shoot. Obina made a quiet phone call to Cheeky. Everything's ready, Cheeky said. Your properties are safe. The accounts are untouched. Good, Obina replied. Give me 1 more week, then we'll return to the city. You're sure? Yes, he said, his voice full of tired strength. The time for truth has come. And as the sun dipped below the hills that evening, a quiet fire burned in Obina's heart. He had lost comfort, but he had found clarity. The village festival came like a storm, colorful, loud, and full of celebration. Women wore their finest wrappers, drummers beat their talking drums, and children danced in dusty slippers, smiling like they had everything in the world. Chief Odili, dressed in gold-trimmed agbada, arrived at the square like a peacock. Beside him was Adiz, her face glowing, her wrists heavy with bangles, and her lips painted a bright red. Obina stood under the shade of a mango tree, holding a calabash of palm wine. He watched quietly as his wife laughed beside the chief, her voice rising higher than the music. She looks different today, Toby whispered beside him. Obina gave a short nod. Sometimes people shine brighter when they forget where they came from. As the drums grew louder, Chief Odili climbed the stage to greet the villagers. With one hand on the mic and another holding Adiz's waist, he laughed into the crowd. I greet my people, he began. This village is blessed with beauty, tradition, and strong women. He looked at Adiz and added loudly, Some women are not meant to suffer. They deserve the best. The villagers murmured, some clapping, others exchanging confused looks. Obina remained still, but Toby's fists clenched. Then something unexpected happened. Odili, drunk with pride and palm wine, turned and laughed at Adiz. You know, he said loudly. The first day I saw this woman, I said, Ah, this one must have run from a poor man. People laughed nervously. Adiz's smile froze. I told her, he continued, slurring now, leave that useless husband and I'll give you a queen's life. At least here you'll have meat in your soup. The laughter grew louder. Adiz's face turned pale. Obina sipped his wine, calm as still water. Later that night, in the small compound, Adiz stormed in, eyes wild. You heard what happened, she shouted. Yes, Obina said, removing his dusty shoes. The village enjoyed the chief's jokes. She flung her bag onto the floor. He insulted me, made me look like a fool, me. Obina looked up slowly. Why did it hurt you so much? She froze. What are you talking about? Unless his words were true, he said quietly. Adiz opened her mouth, then closed it. You think I've been with him? Is that what you believe? Obina didn't answer. He walked past her into the room. But Toby stood in the doorway. I know everything, Mother. She spun around. You've been spying on me? I saw everything. I heard everything. You disgraced Dad. You disgraced yourself. Watch your mouth, she snapped. Toby stepped forward, his voice low. I loved you, Mama. Even when we moved here, I hoped you'd be strong. But you chose gold over love. And now the whole village is laughing. Adiz slapped him, quick and hard. Toby didn't flinch. He turned and walked away. Inside the room, Obinna sat on the mat, listening through the thin wall. His heart broke, but his face remained calm. He reached into his bag and pulled out the same voice recorder Toby had given him days before. He played it again, the chief's voice echoing, "Leave that useless husband." His eyes shut tightly. In that moment, Obinna decided. The test was over, the fire had revealed the truth, and the next sunrise would be the beginning of judgment. The cock crowed before dawn, but Obinna was already awake. He packed the few belongings he had brought to the village, a faded bag, some old clothes, a pair of dusty shoes. Toby helped silently, eyes heavy with questions. "Are we going somewhere, Dad?" he finally asked. Obinna looked at him and smiled faintly. "Yes, son. It's time to go back." Toby's heart lifted. "To the city?" Obinna nodded. "But not the way we left it." He stepped outside and called Adeze, who was still sleeping inside. "We're leaving," he said. "Good riddance," she muttered, turning on her mat. "Maybe peace will return to this compound." She didn't ask where they were going. She didn't care. By mid-morning, a car pulled into the village, a shining black SUV, so different from the broken Peugeot they had arrived in. The villagers gathered quickly, children pointed, old men whispered. Cheek stepped out of the car, dressed in a crisp white caftan. Obinna walked toward him and hugged him like a brother. "Everything is ready?" Obinna asked. Cheek smiled. "The house, the staff, your businesses, they're all waiting. Welcome back, Oga." Obinna turned to Toby. "Come, son, let's go home." As they entered the car, a crowd followed. The rumor spread like wildfire. "Chief, Obinna is rich again. He was never poor. He was testing his wife." In the distance, Adaiz stood at the edge of the compound, mouth half open. Chidinma ran out in confusion. "Mummy, Daddy just left in a big car." Adaiz's eyes widened. She looked at her feet, her clothes, her wrinkled wrapper, and shame swallowed her whole. One of the village women approached. "So your husband wasn't poor after all?" Adaiz stammered. He tricked us." "No," the woman said. "He revealed you." In the city, the mansion gates opened with a soft hum. Obinna and Toby stepped out of the SUV. The house stood tall and grand, refreshed with paint, new furniture, and quiet dignity. Flowers lined the walkways. Staff bowed as he entered. Tobe's eyes widened. "Is this really ours?" Obinna placed a hand on his shoulder. "Yes, son. It always was." Toby looked around, overwhelmed. Why did we ever leave? Obinna walked slowly through the house, his voice steady. Because we were losing something more valuable than gold. We were losing truth, respect, love. And I needed to find out who still had those things. He turned to his son. "Only you did, Toby. Only you stood by me." Tobe's heart swelled with pride and quiet sadness. "What about Mom? What about Chidinma?" Obinna's eyes darkened slightly. They chose what they valued, and now they must live with those choices. Back in the village, Adaiz paced their compound. No more perfume, no more gold bangles, just her, an old wrapper, and regret. Chidinma scrolled her phone in frustration. "There's nothing here," she groaned. "No signal, no money, no future." Adaiz sat on a rock, lost in thought. Then a young man from the city ran into the village, waving a newspaper. "Big news," he shouted. "Chief Obinna's company is back. His wife and daughter abandoned him when he faked poverty. Now he's a national hero for teaching a lesson in loyalty." Adaiz grabbed the paper, trembling. There, on the front page, was a photo of Obinna and Toby in their new mansion, smiling. Headline: True love passes the test. A billionaire's son stands tall as mother falls short. Tears filled Adai's eyes. But it was too late. She had lost everything, and the world had seen. Weeks passed. The city buzzed with Obina's story. Blogs, newspapers, and TV stations all talked about the billionaire who tested his family and returned with dignity. But inside his mansion, life was simple. Obina no longer hosted grand parties. Instead, he spent more time reading, planting flowers in his backyard, and mentoring young business owners. Toby, now more confident, was by his side every day, helping, learning, listening. One sunny morning, as they watered a small garden together, Obina said, "You've taught me something deeper than success, Toby." The boy looked up. "What's that, Dad?" "That real wealth is not measured by cars or houses. It's measured by hearts that stay, even when the lights go off." Toby smiled. "You never needed to pretend to be poor to find love, Dad. You just needed to be still and watch." Obina nodded slowly. "And I watched, and I saw clearly." Meanwhile, in the village, Adai's pride had melted into silence. She no longer walked with raised shoulders. She no longer wore makeup or expensive clothes. She had become a shadow of her former self. Every time someone in the village mentioned Obina's name, she winced. Every time someone praised Tobe's loyalty, she looked away. Even Chief Odili had vanished. Rumors said he fled the village after being caught in a corruption scandal. Chidinma, frustrated and bitter, had returned to the city alone, only to realize no friend wanted her back. Her fame had vanished with her wealth. One day, Adaizi sat alone under the mango tree, thinking of the life she once had. "When I was the wife of a king," she thought, "I threw it away for a shiny crown made of lies." She picked up an old envelope. Obina had once written her a letter when they were young lovers. The words were faded, but the emotion still lingered. "If ever we are tested, I pray we choose love over gold, truth over pride, and family over fame." She began to cry. Back in the city, Obina stood on a podium at a youth empowerment conference. Wore simple native clothes, no gold chain, no luxury watch. Toby stood beside him, holding a microphone. Obina addressed the crowd. "I once had everything, but I was losing myself. So I gave up my crown to see who would walk with me barefoot. Only one person stayed." He turned to Toby. "My son. The real king of my house. The one who reminded me what loyalty looks like." The crowd clapped. Many stood with tears in their eyes. Later that evening, as father and son sat in the living room, Toby asked, "Will we ever forgive Mom?" Obina was quiet for a long moment. "I have already forgiven her," he said. "But forgiveness is not the same as returning to what was. Some lessons must leave a scar." He stood and looked out the window. "But if she truly changes, if she learns what matters, then maybe one day the door will open again." Back in the village, Adais visited a small church. She knelt quietly at the back, her head bowed. The pastor didn't recognize her at first. She didn't ask for blessings. She didn't pray for riches. She simply whispered, "God, give me the strength to fix what I broke. If not for me, then for my son." The candle beside her flickered, and for the first time in many years, her heart was quiet. The village wind blew gently through the windows, carrying away her tears, and maybe, just maybe, carrying a seed of redemption with it.